All right, Leslie.
Hi.
Leslie, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
Well, I was born in Scotland, and then we moved to the United States. So we stayed in Chicago for a little while, and then from there, my dad ended up getting stationed, and
You told me your dad was in the Navy.
yeah, he was in the Navy. So when we were in Illinois, he was doing some schooling, and my mom, she was new to the United States. We stayed with my grandma a lot. My mom kind of learned how to take care of us. It was a handful because of my twin sister. So then when we finished going in Illinois, that's when we got stationed in San Diego. And I was there till I was like 7. He was gone out at sea a lot. So sometimes he'd be gone 3 or 6 months at a time. And so we were alone a lot. And, it was just hard. My mom didn't have a job then. She wasn't working. So we just lived off his pay. And, you shop at the military food place. And I don't know, I don't remember a lot of it. Sometimes I remember, I remember them, I get like flashbacks remembering when they were fighting and stuff. And, we'd get up and, my mom would always, we'd start crying and we'd always go in the living room, my sister and I. But, she'd want us to calm my dad down, but he had a really bad temper. I remember one time he tried to cut her wedding ring off with a can opener.
Cut what?
He tried to cut her wedding ring off with a can opener.
Wedding ring.
Yeah, that he's just really physically abusive. That he was young. They got married when they were both. He was like 19. I think my mom just turned 19. So then when things got really crazy, and we were in 2 different places in San Diego. So we moved to National City, and that's where we ended up. My mom ended up divorcing my dad. And then she got a job on the Marine Corps base working, I think it was like in one of the, the bar or like a nightclub that they had there. And that's when she met my stepdad. And he was in the Marine Corps. So she met him, and I guess, they hit it off that it's hard. You make decisions and you don't know what you're doing, but she had to, she had a handful. She had to be able to take care of us. That he was good to us. He was my stepdad. He was hard to understand. He didn't really know how to show love or stuff. And in the Marine Corps, he started out as a drill corps sergeant. He was very stern and always serious. He was like the middle son in his family, and I guess that he was the one that had to discipline everybody with belts and things like that. It just was really uncomfortable because right away my mom wanted to start calling him dad, and we didn't feel right about that. But as time went on, things got a little different, and then they got married. And my dad, he ended up moving to a different house, and he got married with a younger woman, and that was really weird because you're so young too. You're going over to see your dad, and then there's a younger woman that's married to him, but you're not much younger than them, meaning she was like 18, and I think I was maybe when they finally got married, like 12 or so. It just felt weird. But so that happened, and then my mom wanted to go to Europe. She wanted to be able to go to Europe, so my dad transferred from the Marine Corps into the Army, and because the Army has bases there. So once he did that, we ended up moving to a small base called Burton Wood that was outside. It was between Liverpool and Manchester. It's not there anymore, and we were able to drive over and see my grandma, who was living outside London, and then my mom's sisters and all my cousins and stuff. And that was the first time that we went to a school. We had to go to an English school. That we were always on a base, but going to school that on the bases, and so we'd walk out, and we had a long walk to go to school, and have to wear a uniform, and it was just different that you go and you're taking your classes and you're kind of a little behind because they're more advanced than you, that they do their parochial system a little bit different. And they have longer school years and they have shorter summers. So it took a little while until we started getting a little more advanced but caught up. So we stayed there for maybe 2 years. It was really a small base. That my mom stayed at home. I don't think she had a job then. There was like a tennis court there, so they got off the tennising. And I remember us getting a beagle. There was this huge, you know, fields, and the beagle and him, they go shoot the ducks and stuff up in the field, and he come back with the dog would go get him. But it was like, you know, a sport they did. And I remember one time that we went to, our principal had she lived in a castle, and apparently there's a ghost in this castle. So we went there. She says there's a ghost always, and she leaves, you know, milk and cookies out for it at night. But when you go there, you like can feel it. But then there used to be this field there, and there's always this story about this ghost running down, but someone going after them with a hatchet. That the English kids always had these little, you know, different things you weren't supposed to go into. And there's like abandoned buildings. I remember going up into, and one time somebody fell down into the building because they lost their keys down there. And we'd always get in trouble when we go home because we weren't supposed to be doing all that kind of stuff. But yeah, my sister and I ended up becoming friends with one of the girls really close. And then my brother, it was hard because he was 5 years younger than us. So he was always the one that was kind of out, you know, on the outside. So we were fighting a lot, and a lot of jealousy, and it was just hard. He was really difficult growing up. So when we left there, we got stationed over in Germany. So we were in 2 different places in Germany. One time we were in a place called Fulda by Mannheim, and then we lived in another place by Frankfurt. So we went to the bases there, and we lived, I think it was 3 years at each one. That they had schools on the, you know, American schools. So then when we went there, we were more ahead than the other ones because of the English school. That we started picking up an English accent. So we stayed there, and till I was, we came back to the United States when I was about, I'd say, maybe 12 or 13. We got stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And so I did my end of middle school there. We couldn't go out and date and stuff. I remember that's the first time that my sister and I would go on like hayrides, and we were able to go to dances. I remember we came back with these hickeys. My mom got so mad, and then just one morning I had this like turtleneck on. It was like 100 degrees in Kentucky in summer. She's like, "What are you going to school like a turtleneck?" I didn't want her to see it. That she didn't like. We didn't get spanked and stuff like that, but that time she really slapped me. That she was just really protective of us. She didn't like those kind of things. That we were like a real close-knit family. We'd always do things together. We'd go jogging together. We'd go shopping, or go to the, you know, even if we couldn't afford it, we'd go to like the malls and look around. And then my sister was a flag girl, so we used to go to all the games for school. And a couple times they had the tornado watches, so you had to, you know, get underneath in the little cupboards. That was kind of scary when they had that because you had to stay in there the whole time. Yeah, and they used to have really bad storms there in Kentucky. And then from there we moved to Alexandria, Virginia. My dad, my stepdad was working for, it's called like civil investigation. It's like I don't know exactly. He didn't really talk about it, but anyway, so he went there, and he was working in Alexandria, Virginia, but he was working at the Pentagon. And they didn't have a military base there, so what they do is they take a portion of whatever his pay is that's allocated for the housing when you, and you don't see it because when you got the housing from the base, but because we were on housing, we saw it. So that money that we took, we had to rent an apartment for us. And there they go to school I think it's 3 months, 4 months, 2 months. They have the whole year around school where you're going to school 4 months, you're out 2 months. And they color code you because of this. They want the school segregated. So it was a little different. It was hard making friends and moving around a lot. My sister and I, we felt out of place because, I don't know, my mom, I think she dressed us kind of like fuddy-duddy, and everybody else is in different clothes, and our hairstyles, it was just really hard. We felt out of place. It was hard to fit in. It was always hard to fit in, I think, school like that until I got older. Especially to get my own identity, because she always dressed my sister alike until we were like 15. But it would be like things that she'd like, you know, that she would think would look good on us, and they made us look really more like a boy than a girl. It didn't feel very feminine. So anyway, we were there for maybe 2 years, and after that, we got sent over here to San Francisco. We drove all the way. But before we did that, we ended up visiting my grandma. We went and saw my grandma. We did a lot of driving. During the holidays, my grandma in Chicago, we drive across country. So then we got stationed on the Presidio, and I think I was 15 and a half when we moved here. So that was a long drive. We ended up driving all the way from Chicago. We had to stop a lot of times, and then I remember taking a nap and finally waking up when we hit the Golden Gate Bridge to cross over, because we'd never seen San Francisco. Like we were just so excited about going to California. And it was just like, I couldn't believe how big the city was. So we had a nice place on the Presidio, and we had to, at first we were going to go to a public school, and we went down to sign up at Galileo, but there was a bunch of kids fighting with the teachers and stuff, and my mom's like, no way. We didn't want to go to a parochial school, Catholic school, because of the uniforms and stuff. But we ended up going anyway, because we knew that we wouldn't be able to fit in like that. That the city kind of was a little scary for us. Just the way people were raised, but the anger and things like that they had. So my twin sister, my brother went to Catholic school for a little while until he got expelled from there. He couldn't go anymore. And he used to skip school a lot. And they had a lot of problems with my brother. But we ended up staying and graduating from that school. So I finished my sophomore year, did my junior year and my senior year at Star of the Sea Catholic School. It was on 9th and Geary. And we got taught by some of the nuns, and some of the teachers weren't. We had to wear a uniform there too. But I remember when we went to go get it, my mom got us the really long skirts, and then when we ended up going to school, all the girls are wearing the short skirts, but they're rolling their skirts up. So she got these pants, and they were just awful. I'm like, I can't believe I have to wear these pants. But I felt so out of place that I was really glad when she bought the skirt. But then the girls started showing us how to, we wear the pants and bring the skirt to school, and my mom wouldn't know. And we roll it up. We did whatever we could so we didn't look like a boy. It was just really uncomfortable. So we ended up graduating there, and I got a job on the Presidio, and I was working in this word processing department. You take this it's a civil investigation, not a civil test, and you get scored on it. And I was able to type real fast. I don't know how I picked it up. I don't even remember typing in school. But I picked it up really fast, and I was able to pick up the computers. So I ended up getting a job and working in their word processing department. And every morning they come in, lots of different people from the different military areas, and there'd be all kinds of documents they'd make us type, and there'd be like, tapes we'd have to type. So I did that for, I think, like 2.5 years. I ended up going to, I think we went to LA, and we did a lot of training because they had this really old system, and then we turned and we got that wank system that they used to have, and we had to all get trained on that. But they wanted me to, I used to help train the people. They taught us how to train people on the computer. And my mom was working at one of the officers club, and anyway, she ended up cheating on my dad, and things got really crazy. When I ended up graduating, things got really bad between them, and they separated. So we lived on the base for a little while, but you lose your housing when that happens. So we ended up having to get an apartment with the money that would be for housing, and we ended up moving over on 44th and it's a Lincoln, I think it was, or Irving. It's on the other side of the Sunset, the park, the Golden Gate Park. And I got a job working for a company called Booz Allen in Hamilton, doing the same thing. They had a word processing department, but I was working for one of the partners there, and I did pretty well. I think when things got kind of bad, it's you do things, you start flirting with the people you're working with, you end up going out and drinking, and then you end up, that's why sometimes you'd snort coke. And then things got just real dysfunctional. I would skip, I'd miss work, or I'd party too much on the weekends. That it was like it was exciting and fun. I mean, I'd go out on ladies' night. I'd be dancing on both Saturday and Sunday, and when I drank, I wasn't drunk, but the coke would like bring me down. I was like a social kind of like butterfly. I was like just so, it was just so different. Yeah, so I stayed there for maybe 2.5 years, and then I moved. That was up in the Bank of America building, and then I got sometimes I'd have to temp for a while till I got another job. I worked up in California by Chinatown for this other company called the Refunds. The same thing there. I'd always do good for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then it either get too stressful, or I just didn't know how to deal with it all. I'd work a lot of long hours, and on the weekends, I was making pretty decent money. I had a studio, and I didn't have to walk. I just had to walk to work. But I still, I'm down in the area where you're all going out. As a company, everybody would go out on Fridays. You'd go drinking or go somewhere where they treat you to dinner. And the same thing happened. Eventually, I ended up, missing too much work and calling in sick. Luckily, I had a really cool boss, and he ended up letting me resign. That I'm kind of lucky. The jobs that I've messed up, even though I messed them up, they still will give me a review. They would never fire me. That I kind of always knew. They kind of knew something was going on, but I was going crying and stuff. And eventually, I'd have to go in and bow my head down because I wouldn't. It would take me a while to call in. I'd miss so much work that you get some reprimanded and stuff like that. I was just really disappointed in myself because I was doing really good. And so when I left the Refunds and I was living in that studio, that's when I was hanging out with another person that's black guy that I used to have an apartment with, and he knew where to go get it. We used to just go get it, and he'd meet me at my apartment. And instead of snorting, then you'd end up smoking. And before I knew it, I was going down there myself, but I was walking straight down to the Tenderloin and getting it. So that I ended up getting put in some outpatient. The Refunds tried to put me in this, I don't know what kind of program it was, but it wasn't meant for me. It was way out, and I don't even know where it was. But it ended up coming back and leaving. I didn't stay. I ended up losing that apartment. My things I put in my, I ended up like walking the streets a little bit. That I ended up finding another person that had an apartment. She had to get, she was helping keep together for her daughter. That her daughter was going to lose the lease, so she was letting me sleep in there. But I was taking my really nice clothes and taking them down to Polk Street and selling them for money. That I was working like an escort service. So, but then I started seeing guys on the street. You start seeing how the other people are working. Then you're walking around, you meet people. So I was bringing people there to date. I was making money and smoking the crack. I didn't have to pay to stay there. And then finally, I was able to call my mom, and she let me come stay with her. I put all my things in her garage, and I tried to get my, things back together again. But from there, I ended up going farther into the Tenderloin. That place I ended up leaving, but you start just moving yourself down. That you got to be able to afford these places. That I was working the escort services, but then it got hard. Sometimes I'd make money, and other times I wouldn't. So I started seeing people walk around, but how they were making money on the streets. So I started prostituting. I didn't have pimps, but I was with guys. They'd watch over me. That I had some really bad situations. I had been involved with like 2 pimps, and those ones I met at like a normal bars. And I was escorting, and you get stuck on that thing where they've got this like control over you. They're really abusive, but a lot of abusive things were going on. I mean, to the point where you're scared to leave. It's like they put that fear of God in you. I was making a lot of good money working the escort service. I was driving all over the place. And of course, he's not working. He's wanting the money. And we didn't do the crack then. We were just putting the cocaine in cigarettes. But when he'd come home and he'd want to have sex with me, but he was really rough. That's when we were doing anal sex and stuff like that. He was just mean. He was so mean that he'd whip me with a belt and put cigarettes out on me. That I didn't know how to cook very well. I mean, it was just all kind of new with me. He got mad because I didn't know how to flip his eggs sunny side up. It's got really dysfunctional. And I remember one day I got a call in the escort service, and I ended up going on a date down at the Broadway Hotel. It's like a Tenderloin hotel, but it's on Polk, close to Broadway. I forget what the name of it is. And so I went on the date, and I ended up going in there, and that's when the guy was doing the crack. And I hadn't done that for a while, but I ended up breaking down and doing it with him because he was spending a lot of money. And he was paying through credit cards, so I stayed there for a while. And the guy I was with had some lady he knew from Hawaii, because that's where he came from. And he found out where I was. He called the escort service, and they finally told him where I was, because I didn't go home, but I didn't call. I didn't check in with nobody because I was really spooked. I was spooked in that place, but the guy got me like heck of stuck. He started tripping and everything. I didn't know what to do because he was just like tripping. But I didn't know how he was going to react. I just knew that he was going to be so angry at me. So I finally went into the car with him and went home, and that's when he kind of gave me an ultimatum. You know, the woman's like, don't do it, you know, leave her alone. But he really just wanted to fucking beat the shit out of me. And he goes, you can either take your beating or you can leave. And I said, well, then I'm just going to leave. He goes, just remember that you can't take things with you that you got through me. I said, I don't give a shit. But I grabbed a bag, and I took some of the things. But I had envelopes put away with money. He didn't know what I was doing with the money. I put the bills with money and make sure, because we were renting cars, I made sure I put all the money in different places. But I used to get good tips, so I wasn't telling him everything. I wasn't handing him at all. I was trying to manage it, make sure I could, you know, pay off my bills and pay the rent. And so I took as much as I could, and I took my credit cards and my bank cards. He didn't know, he couldn't keep those. And I walked out, and I didn't take a lot. I just left everything. I had rented furniture and everything. The whole place was mine. That I'd gotten furniture from, I don't know what place it was, over by the Safeway off of Geary. I think it was Levitt's or something. There was some furniture place over there. I had to call my grandmother so she could be a reference. Was told, you know, to furnish the whole place. Because basically this guy had nothing. But he was black and he was cute. Somehow I got involved, you know, being attracted to African Americans. And I always end up picking the wrong ones. That I lived in Chicago, and the same thing had happened there. I ended up meeting somebody, going out dancing. And that was another nightmare. But I ended up doing escort service there too. So I finally left him, but I couldn't get a cab. So I just remember it was that I was on Eddy. I think it was into Visadero. So I just ended up walking straight down Eddy, trying to hail a cab. And before I knew it, I'm just walking and walking because I'm just so angry. I was just like, I just wanted to get away from him. I was just so glad to get out of that house because I just couldn't stand the fact that I was getting beat all the time. I knew it was going to be hard, but I was like, thank God I'm away from him, because there would be so many nights that I'd just dream about how am I going to get away from this asshole. I felt like I wanted to kill him because that's how bad he would hurt me. And then he knew where my mom lived. He knew, he just knew a lot of things about me. So I ended up down the Tenderloin, but I ended up at the Western where you saw me, and it was a lot different then. And of course, I went straight to an ATM and got some crack and went in there and I started smoking. And I met people there. And it took a while to kind of like fit in. So I kind of, I don't know who I met there. There was another girl, I think. She kind of just walked around but let me know where things were. It was kind of scary because they knew that I had, money on me. I didn't want to let them know how much money I had on me, But if you want to be able to fit in and know, and you don't want to, you want to make sure that you're not going to be in danger, and I'm attractive and different. So of course, everybody's, everyone wants you because you're a money maker, that they're lean to you because they don't really have any hustle. But you end up working the streets and making money, and you're feeding their habit and your habit and paying the room. That you're doing a lot, and it gets really stressful. But one little thing that they don't like, then they mess up the same thing. They'll either, they'll scold you somehow that you don't understand. It's kind of like a control thing too, but it's different some, like right now, but there were times I was with people that I shouldn't have been with. And I got really caught up out here in the Tenderloin. I ended up meeting somebody, a Spanish guy, and he ended up getting a job at one of the hotels at Jefferson up on Geary Street. And he was doing maintenance in there. So I would still, I'd live in there, and I still would work the escort service, but I'd work outside. And I ended up getting pregnant. So I tried to clean up and, do the best I could. So I ended up having my baby, and he had to stay in the hospital like a week. And, I had to cut back on the cocaine. He had not very much cocaine in his body, but they wanted to make sure that he, was okay. That I didn't have, it was kind of like a CPS case. So I had to check in with the doctor a lot, and, child welfare. They wanted to make sure that he was going to be okay. They'd make stops at the hotel. That we set it up so he had his bouncer, but, he'd get a bath. We had like a little kitchen area. They just wanted to be able, you could cook and you could be able to take care of him, crib and stuff. And so I did that a lot, and people would watch him while I'd go out and work. And I ended up meeting this guy who's like really cute and stuff, and he'd come pick up the girls, and he'd take us away, kind of away from here, and we'd go get, he'd buy some crack. He was just different. He was just Puerto Rican. He was like, made money just weird ways. I don't know. He knew how to get in bank accounts and things like that. He was good with the computers. So a couple of us would hang out with him. It's kind of like they'd save us from the guys we were with because we weren't really happy. And then my son's dad got arrested and ended up in jail. And he got put over there in the Marin jail. And that's when I lost the hotel. I did end up meeting a lot of people. I met some really nice men like you that they'd want to help you get better, and they'd get you an apartment, but they saw that you had kids. And so this man I had called that called him like a sugar daddy. So he took me somewhere in the past Delia City, way far past Delia City, and he had me in a hotel out there, but he was going to put me in an apartment and things like that and try and get me a job. But at first I thought I could do it, but I didn't have much cocaine, crack with me. And it was only like a couple days that I was there because he'd go back and forth to his apartment. Of course, he was with, a wife. And before I knew it, I was taking the train all the way down here and putting my son with me so I could get some crack and go back. And I ended up messing that up and ended up just being down here again. And it was like my chance to be able to, try and get better. I don't know, things like that happen and you think, oh, it's like a fairy tale, but it ends up just not working out. That's, he wasn't really like my type. And I knew I wasn't going to be happy out there. It was like way out. And it's hard to stop smoking the crack. You can't just do it like that. You can't just stop and not think about it. But, I'm in a hotel by myself and he's gone all the time. That sometimes it was 2 days before he comes see me. And I didn't have a car. And so, anyway, it ended up all going haywire. It ended up back down here again. And I was bouncing from hotels with my son. And it wasn't cool. That, I'm putting him in a stroller and the person I ended up going with, he's watching him in the car while I'm trying to make money dating. And there's a laundromat over there on Hyde Street between O'Farrell and Post. And I went on a date. And he was in the laundromat watching him. And we actually we went up to, I think that was Cal Food. There used to be a different grocery store because we had to get him some milk or something. I still was taking care of him. They didn't think I was taking care of him, but I was. Even though, we had to, we were having a hard time. That someone calls CPS on us, and while I was gone, they came and they took my son away. They said that we were getting high around him and smoking crack. But, I mean, even though we were smoking, he'd be in the laundromat with somebody or we'd go outside. It wasn't like I was blowing it in his face and things like that. So my son ended up getting taken away. It was really it really traumatized me. You just don't know what to do. You end up falling farther down. I got angry at the guy I was with and angry at myself. And I just keep using more, instead of doing the right thing and going, doing the CPS thing and trying to get your son back. So his dad's brother and wife ended up adopting him. His name's Dylan. He's like 20, I think he's 28 now. My sons are like 2 years apart. And I ended up staying with this guy and for quite a while because his dad stayed in jail for quite a while. But then I ended up getting farther in the Tenderloin. So instead of like Geary, but O'Farrell, I'm ending up getting hotels down by Ellis or Eddy. So now I'm really, they call it the jungle. I'm really down in the jungle. I'm really down in the craziness. But I kind of just didn't stay down there. I was up there, and if I got my drugs, it was from the Hondurans and things like that. That he didn't let me go down in that area, you know. Even when I was working, I stayed up on Post Street. It's just that I wasn't used to other people using different drugs, and the guy I was with was just shooting down there and working, figuring out how they were walking around and making money down there. And I stayed with him for quite a while, but he got really abusive too. That he'd do his heroin, but if he didn't have his heroin, he'd just go ballistic on me. And I remember I don't know how many times, maybe 20 or 30 times in different hotels, he'd get on top of me and start strangling me, and I couldn't, you know, I think I passed out. It feels like you died, and when you wake up, it feels really weird. But it's that he was really abusive with me, and he just went out of control. He flipped, and it was crazy. So then I started figuring out what he needed, and I'd be stressing because I'd be out there and saying, I've got to get this to him, because as long as I make sure he has this a couple times a day, but that he has it and he wakes up with it, and he's okay. But he was doing crack too, so that was really hard. I was working the street a lot. That he ended up getting more deep into doing the heroin, but going into different hotels with different females, and it's harder to get the heroin, getting high with other people. And if you don't have enough money, he's going in with other people. And it just, it felt weird. We were in the hotel when we walked down before we got to Ellis where your car was. There was a hotel right before the middle of the block there. The Union Hotel. No, the Union was there. It's the Jefferson. So, and we stayed there for like maybe a year and a half. I was able to keep paying the rent and staying in the hotel. To year 70. We'd always go to McDonald's, and he'd get me food, and then I'd get double so that I could make sure my guy could eat too. And then we'd drive around, and we'd just do a quick date in the back of his car. But he'd always give me like $60, and it was enough to get a room. You know, so one of those days when it was horrible outside and I couldn't make any money, but the cops would be driving around, or, you know, you're wondering if you're going to get arrested. They used to take the paddy wagon around a lot, and they'd just pick us girls up. They'd just throw us all in the van, and we'd all end up going down to jail and having to spend like 8 hours down there before they'd cite us out. But then you get cited out, and the same thing would happen. That if you weren't careful enough, the same thing would happen, and some of the girls would get arrested twice. That's when I started getting more arrested for like prostitution. A little bit when I was on Post Street, but down there a lot. And I remember we used to smoke crack outside, and I wasn't used to doing that either until I got farther down there. That it was different with us. To make money down there, it was just a little different. The guys were like, I don't know, they were breaking into cars and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Stealing, you know, I don't know. They weren't to be very nice when people would come down, you know, to robbing and stuff like that. And sometimes I'd get really mad because it'd be somebody that I knew would keep coming down and taking care of me. And you don't know that they're going to do that when they leave you. And sometimes it was out of my control, you know. It's like I try to take them to a nice hotel because, you know, maybe someone like you, but sometimes they did want to smoke and hang out for 2 or 3 days, and I'd make good money, you know, and we'd be able to survive for a while. That sometimes I call them like my brothers, the youngsters and other people out there. They go run and get me crack. They'd like kind of watch out for me so nobody would mess with me, because my dude would be in another hotel selling drugs or something, and I'd make them go run and get the drugs. That all you're worrying about is that you don't want anybody to take them away from you, because the minute you lose them, it's all over. That if he gets farther down the Tenderloin, before you know it, they're doing all kinds of some of these guys that would take their cars and everything. And some of these men that were coming down here and smoking ended up down here. They ended up losing everything, and ended up down here just like me or you, and they literally have their car and very little money, but they're having to figure out how to hustle. That they're like lawyers and accountants. I mean, they're really like important people, and they'd come down and they get caught up in the whole crack game. The sex and the crack was like a thing back then. That they'd come down and they had like weird requests. They'd want you to dress a certain way, or sometimes I remember the one guy would just put me in outfits, and he didn't really want sex. He would just do little things with him. They just had weird things they'd like to do. He'd film you and stuff like you're doing. But you'd have a nice hotel, and even though you're smoking crack, he was giving you a lot of money. And it was like exciting for me that it, you know, because you're like, wait, finally you're going to get some decent money. But, I just kept farther and farther down. I just kept losing myself. But when I first started prostituting or working escort service, you know, I was a little bit more sophisticated and would, you know, wear leather outfits, and I dressed more business type. I still had my business suits and things like that. And when I got to the hotel, that's when I put lingerie or something on with them. But when I came down to the Tenderloin, I was dressing in like longer skirts and higher shoes. You know, they were dressing different. There were two types of us. There was the prostitutes with the pimps, and they weren't doing the drugs. They didn't really like us because we were doing drugs. And that some of us would dress nicer. That it was like this weird thing. It was like you just knew you were just falling deeper and deeper into it. And sometimes I couldn't get a room, and I'd be sleeping, you know, on a mattress outside, or, you know, there was abandoned buildings. We'd go down in basements. There's ways that they found it out to how to get inside.
How many years have you been smoking crack?
On and off for maybe 25 years. So I just turned 60 on June 5th, and I've been clean 3 times. I've been in program. Yeah, 3 different times. The first time my first son, I didn't go into a program. I went into, with my second son, I went into a place called Jelani House. But I ended up getting arrested for, I think it was possession or something like that, some kind of charge. And it was the first time I ended up having to stay in jail for quite a while. I was pregnant when I was there with him. And that's when they, you know, you keep going to court, and they found a program. It was a mother-infant program. So they got me put in there so that I was able to have my baby clean, you know. So when you go to the program, I was only like 6 months pregnant. So I ended up doing that program, and I did really well. And so that my second son, I didn't do a program. So I did that Jelani House, and that was with my last son. He was a mixed baby. His name is Dimitri. My middle son, I ended up getting pregnant with the maniac that was hurting me, and I ended up in the Western, and I went into labor in there. I was smoking crack. I was really high. I ended up smoking all the way through his pregnancy. That I'm not proud of it. That they're lucky they're okay. That I'm just grateful that there were people that, you know, are taking care of them. My mom has my middle son, and my older son's with his dad, but my younger son, I don't know where he went. So I did the program, and I did really well. I ended up getting Section 8 and having Section 8 housing. And I moved into the avenues. I stayed clean for quite a while. I went to school. I went to LVN school. I did some nursing. In the Jelani House, you go through different phases. So that some people were working, but I ended up going to school, and I was doing like prerequisites to get into the nursing program. And then from there, I went to a transitional place, and you get like apartments there, and it was right on, I think it was on close to Hayton Market, and we'd go to an outpatient over in the Mission, but then you started meeting people that were from the Mission that you knew, right? They were going there too. That we ended up just getting these little cliques, but there'd be people from the streets when you were out there, you know, the time before. That a couple of the girls, we got close in the program, and they ended up getting put over to the transitional house we all went to. They ended up going to different transitional houses, but some of them had families to go to. So it was an apartment, and there's certain things you have to do, and you still got their money, but they were putting money in savings for you. There was like a daycare that was there. We had an outside little playground. They had the laundry room there. That's where we started becoming more independent. Even they weren't there. They were there during the day, but they'd leave. I think it was 5 or 6 o'clock, or maybe 7, because sometimes we'd have little groups we'd have to do. And then you're by yourself, you know, in the evenings and on the weekends.
How many years have you been on the streets now?
Total, I'd say 20-something years. That I'd say maybe it's not that long. Maybe less than that.
Always smoking crack? That
I always did crack. That I didn't, even though when I started having my kids, but my middle son, when he started using the heroin, that's when I started seeing people do different drugs. You started seeing them do speed, but mainly it was heroin out here a lot, and the crack. That's when they didn't have tents, but they were making like makeshift places up on Ellis Street. There's or Eddie, where the PG&E thing is now, and there used to be trees there and stuff, and they'd be able to camp out there. But that's people were selling, you know, things on the street. It was just different. That's when you started seeing how different the different life people were living. So yeah, I think I don't know how many times I've been clean 3 times, and I'm always relapsing like 6 or 7 years. That, you know, I was even married. As I get that itch, you know, I ended up messing up like 5 or 6 after 5 or 6 years.
What do you think the core of it all is? Using crack.
Sometimes it's I'll be in a situation where I'll be with somebody, or I end up getting hurt, or always maybe because I'm losing my kids. That I never really dealt with that a lot. I'd always just want to push it away. But even though I got clean, you know, my family still would be disappointed, because it would be like over and over again. It's like, how many times are you gonna like get clean and then relapse and do the same thing? I got married. I was married for like 7 years. I was doing really well working. My mom is like my best friend. We get along. But then there's my twin sister who's always at competition, and she lives in Wisconsin, so she's not here. But my son's living with her too, my middle son. So there's a lot of like animosity. He didn't really accept me coming in too much. That was the hardest. It was the hardest to deal with when I went there and got clean. But asking you know, my mom if I could come live with him, because I knew my son didn't like me. He just hated me because I left him in the hospital, but he was addicted to heroin. He just couldn't deal with it. That it was hard because my mom was loving him, but you know, she's kind of like in the middle. That sometimes she understood it, and other times she didn't. And
where do you stay now?
That hotel you in, I was in last night, but a couple nights. That some nights I'm inside and sometimes not. That
it gets colder at night.
It's freezing. And last night I was just so cold. I was freezing. But I was sitting on my suitcase outside the Western. There was another girl that was inside, and I was going to see if I could come inside for a little while. She ended up meeting this guy and going in there, but she doesn't like people like hanging out with her. That's when I call him my brother, because I've known him for a long time. He ended up coming out and said, "I'll be right back." But he brought me in the hotel finally, because I was just shivering. I was so cold. I just couldn't make any money. My injury that I have was bothering me. I was literally like just lying on a cardboard on the cement, and it got so cold. And I don't do well when I've got that cold. It goes right in your body. You're just shivering. But then it was misty out, so the last 3 days it was just awful.
And how do you make money?
That I date guys. It's been really hard though. That before there used to always be a lot of people out there, a lot of different girls, but now the prostitutes are gone. There's not many women out there that are working. They're mainly with these guys doing the fentanyl, but they're boosting. They have a different kind of relationship. It's not that they judge me. It's just they're younger, and it's just something that they don't understand. So that's how I do it. But it's been getting harder and harder. You know, I either meet people like you, or I'm having to stand on the street, and when cars go by, there's certain areas, and you're having to just smile and wear what you're wearing, and hopefully they're going to stop and ask you for a date. So I usually go up to Post Street, but one corner it's all the transvestites, and then the other corner it's just basically me. There might be another girl. There's not very many girls out there anymore. Like I said, it's mainly everybody walking around, boosting. They're just making money in different ways. So sometimes I was able to get on the internet and try and do things like that. And then, I don't know, I just kind of, like I said, I lost control of everything. You end up losing your place, you have it for a while, and then you end up going to a different hotel. Then I ended up getting really sick with that Shingala. And I didn't have a dude, you know, I'm trying to take care of myself. That I was sick for 5 days. And finally the manager said, "You have to go." And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? You know, I can't make money, I'm sick. It was hard before that stopped. and I don't know how I got it, stuff. And they had a van or like a car or Jeep or something. So when I couldn't make money, they'd let me, sleep in there. Basically, the whole car was full of stuff because they drove from somewhere else. They used to, they go in different places and, get these clothes and sell them. Their car was just full of so much stuff. Literally, we're in the front seat. I'm sitting in the middle. There's a younger one and then the older one. But, we're all using. That's when I kind of leaned on them more. It started raining real bad. It was really hard to make money. And I didn't have to pay, to get a room. They're used to living like that, either in their car, but on the street. A lot of times they don't want to get a room. I hadn't really been around like a whole group of people that are kind of like click and kind of hang out. That's when the fentanyl, that's when I started, I didn't do it, but that's when, I realized what they were smoking, the fentanyl. But the younger one, instead of, he's doing the heroin a different way you're not used to, and then the speed, and you're just, doing the crack. It was kind of weird that it felt uncomfortable because they're a lot younger than me, but I was falling apart. I was losing it out there. Things have really changed. It wasn't like it was before. All the people that I knew died.
How have things changed?
Well, mostly everybody that I knew, but that was kind of like in my little clique, my group. They passed away or they died of, fentanyl poisoning, or they got some kind of illness. There's just not many of us around anymore. That it was just a group of us. It was like a family. They're different races, but most of them are just gone. Like my brother Jason, maybe he's around, and I have a couple other women that had babies by my son's father, and they're still here. But yeah, most of them died. A lot of them got killed by the fentanyl. I was clean when the whole fentanyl thing came out. So when I relapsed, not this time, but the time before, that's when I kept seeing how things were really different out here.
How has the Tenderloin changed over the years?
Just got more miserable and depressing. That you just see so many people just not caring, and you don't understand how they've gotten addicted to the heroin or the fentanyl. You don't understand everybody's family. That you just have to be understanding. Everybody else we all have a different family. We have a way we came down here. Some of them were, that they lived in projects, but selling drugs. It's been in their life the whole time. It's been in their family the whole time. From mother doing this and all the way down. That I'm not sure. This whole fentanyl thing is just weird.
What regrets do you have? What's your biggest regret?
I guess just not caring about myself, but just letting this whole place take me over. I've lost so many things. I miss my family, my kids. I had really nice jobs. I'm not proud of it, and it's hard to admit it, but I haven't called my mom and talked to her, and I miss her. My sister, I was close to her. She's my identical twin. It's really hard that I'm just too proud to call her. That I just basically just left and came on a bus again. That I just don't understand how it takes you over so fast. Before you know it, you're right back down in it.
You think you'll be down here your whole life?
That I pray to God not. No. And I found out I have HIV, and that really scared me this time when I went to the clinic. They did a bunch of tests on me. But then they've been helping me with this prolapse thing that's going on and getting me so I can get surgery. It's just harder and harder to make money. But I really don't want to judge people, but I know I don't want to live like this the rest of my life. That I know I can do better, And I don't know if I'll ever quit the drugs, but, I just want to care enough about myself, to try and do the right thing. I know I don't want to die out here. I know I don't want to be able to say goodbye to my mom because she's getting on in age. That finally my doctor that I have here found her address. I couldn't even remember her address. She found her address from Kaiser or something. But I don't have her phone number. She changed, she doesn't have the same home phone number, but she changed services on her cell phone. So I have no way of calling her. I can't remember the numbers. It's just like I have amnesia. My sister might be listed in the Yellow Pages in Wisconsin, but it's the same thing that she's used before, but because I keep relapsing, you know, she does that. I just know that I'm going to have to hear so much. This, you know, it's the truth, but it gets painful. Sometimes they get ugly and mean.
What would you say is the most important lesson you've learned in all of this?
That you can't take for granted, you know, things that you have. That life is short, you know. Before you know it, you're going to be gone, but we're all going to die. That a lot of things are happening in the world. My regrets are, you know, not having my son, but, you know, not caring enough about myself to, you know, to just get up and get back in a program and get out of here. But then you start caring about everybody else down here. And you start getting angry at the city because they're not helping you. You know, they look at housing, but it ends up just getting worse and worse. There's not very many hotels around anymore. There's a lot more we had before, but they took those and made them all SROs. And people got in there when, through special circumstances. Some of it was when the COVID went around. But they have, through SSI and all that kind of stuff, that a lot of them have the housings. They changed all the hotels and now they're like SROs. And but you can't get in those times. The lists are really hard to get on. It was just hard because I'm making, you know, I'm making money, but I don't know. It just sometimes I get angry because I think I should be able to have housing. I don't know why it's taken so long to get housing, but I think that I get looked at as like, well, she's different. She maybe thinks she's, you know, she's a little standoffish, but it's not fun. It's not any fun. That every day is a struggle. And I'm tired of crying. I'm tired of hurting. I'm tired of being alone. I'm tired of waking up and not knowing what I'm going to do the whole day. But if I'm going to go out and be able to make money, or how am I going to keep my room? And then you've got this whole drug thing. You're trying not to do so much, but then you got to think of food, and it's just hard. But you end up getting in this like little clique, and you know, they see that you've got money, that you know, you want to help them out because they've helped you out before. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever going to get out. That sometimes I really like smoking the crack. And when I get money, it's exciting. It's like an exciting thing. You get stuck on that whole thing. I'm tired of doing the programs. They don't work for me. It's just hard to keep going over and over and over again about everything that's been gone on with you. I mean, and I know I'll do good for a while, but I don't know. It's hard to get clean again. I mean, I smoke a lot of crack all day long. I mean, I smoke it from the minute I get up. I don't have it always, but, you know, I wake up to take a hit. You know, I should be eating better. I'm trying to, you know, eat right and trying to get sleep. Finally, I got put back on my psych meds and my medication for my HIV. And they're helping me with trying to get my surgery and get my teeth done. That a lot of people would think, well, why is she doing all that? It's just that I feel bad. You know, my teeth's all falling out. I need to get glasses. But, you know, I was just disregarding this injury, and it's serious. I need to take care of it. To some people so that I could get a room. I was going to like sell half of them and keep half of them. And he went into this place and came out. I went in there to get my card, and when I went to another place to use it, because I know a hotel guy that would let me, you know, stay there for 2 days, and he gives me some cash, and he uses it to go grocery shopping. You're not supposed to do that, but sometimes we do. We have to do it because you want to be in a room. So I went to another store to get a drink, and it said there was no funds. So for the last week, maybe it's been 2 weeks, I've literally thought I didn't have any money on it till today when I went to the clinic and I called, and then it's there. That it didn't get taken away. It's still there. So, you know, at least I have that. I can get some food with it. I'll
make your night a little easier.
That you'll make my day a little easier, yeah.
All right, Leslie. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
I wish you lots of luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.